Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Framework Podcast. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Anna Trujillo, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. Jamie and I are going to talk about what makes a great advisor event and kind of recap some new trends that we've noticed in these post-COVID, post-pandemic events, and then also talk about things that we've seen in the past that haven't worked so much at different events we've been to. So, Jamie, so tell me, what have you noticed in some of the events that you've been to? You've been doing a lot of traveling, a lot of going to different events. What are some new trends you're seeing in post-COVID events? Well, we're still in the pandemic, but we're pretty much acting like it doesn't exist anymore. So let's just say post-COVID.
Yeah, the post-COVID stuff is odd because my son is home right now because school is shut down in May, right? Due to COVID. So we're definitely still living with it. And I think to some degree, it's just how we live with it's a little bit different. And I think events are still trying to figure that out too. Some of the events I've gone to another event on Sunday, and I know that they're still requiring a positive test and or vaccine to go to the event. So I think some of those things too, just how we treat health and events is different. I've probably spoken at, I don't know if I'd say 1,000 events, but probably somewhere near there. Maybe it is. I haven't gone back and looked, but I might have spoken 1,000 times out there or more. And there were times where I was sick and I would just go because you're the speaker and you're like, hey, if I can get up and move and I can do my hour presentation, I'm going to go. And, as a speaker, it's a little easier. I might not interact with people. You come in the back, you don't go to the other stuff. But I think that's something that's changed. Like if I was sick now, I would just tell the event like, hey, I'm not coming. Right. And I'd offer up a suggestion of somebody else. And I've done that in the past before too. So I think for like attendees and speakers, that's something, it's not just if you have COVID, it's just you're sick now. Like, should you really go to an event and risk spreading any type of illness around? The answer is probably no. And so I think that awareness of that, not just COVID related, but broader, is a good thing for society. Is just how we interact with others, being more conscious of other people's health is probably a good outcome of this. I'm pretty well known, so I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Like, even though I've gone to a lot of events, and part of that's like, I'm probably jaded on it. Like, I know I've been to over 1,000 events for about 7 or 8 years. I did over 180 nights a year in hotels. I think I'm up to about 60 some this year by May. And most of those are event driven things too. And so I honestly have a little bit of like jadedness around events. I don't love all events. I was talking to some people at the last event, like that the kind of resetting of everything in 2020 and 2021 was probably good. I think we had a proliferation of really bad events out there that were just occurring to occur, weren't adding a ton of value, weren't greatly attended, and was probably creating a lot of just general inefficiencies out there. So I hope, they'll probably creep back in over time, but I hope we get a stretch of time where we just have better events than we did before. So those are things that I think about immediately. And then, Anna, I know you and I just went to the FPA retreat in Austin, and so I'd love to get some of your feedback there. You've been to other FPA retreats, and I think it was a very successful event, right, from their standpoint, and people seemed happy and glad. The people who choose to be out right now, I think that's one cool thing, is like anyone at something isn't really forced to be there, right? Like you actually chose to be there versus your company said go. And so I think it creates an interesting atmosphere at events right now, which is probably a little happier than we've seen at previous events.
Yeah, definitely. So FPA Retreat has always been one of my favorite events just because I am not a very highly social person. So it was always very intimate and there are not a lot of people. But previously, having been on staff at FPA, it was a lot of stress running the desk and doing member interaction, helping them with the app. Like there was always a lot of anger, people being mad about something or something not working and complaining about the food. And this year, like just in chatting with some of my old friends over there who are still on staff, like everybody was just so happy, like just so happy to be out, so happy to, be able to see these wonderful sessions. There's a lot of really great speakers this year. And one of the things I appreciated was, back, I think it was like in 2015, we had our annual conference in Boston. Like we had hired one of those event companies to put it together, and they stacked like event, like session after session after, and people were like, we can't get to all the sessions, and it was just too much content. So one of the things I really appreciated about Retreat was that they spread out the events. They give people enough time to decompress after the sessions, get some water, get some coffee, get some snacks, and then get back into the session to learn. So they didn't miss their sessions and have to choose between them. So it felt like just enough content, and it was really great content and really great speakers. So that was really exciting. And that's one of the things I think we do well with Excel, is not having our attendees choose between really great sessions. Last year was my first Excel, and I was really pleased with the format of the general session. Like, it's not just one speaker, and then you have to go out and decide which of the breakouts you're going to attend. It was all these amazing speakers, one right after the other, on the main stage, everybody together, and it sets it off in a really positive way. Like, everybody got to see the great speakers together, and like, you could talk about it, and then you get to go to the breakouts and then choose which ones you want to see from there. So that's a really cool thing to me, is making sure like the events that you choose have that time and space built in, and that you don't have to be choosing between really great sessions. You could attend them all. So that's something I always look for when I look to events, is the time in between to decompress and kind of absorb the knowledge in the sessions that I went to. So that's a really cool thing I'm noticing happening.
Yeah, I was, I was at the FPA retreat. I like it because of that slower speed of it, right? I mean, even the location was nice. It's outside of a city, less distractions, hard to get food, but we did have some delivered.
We did. We did. Thank goodness for DoorDash.
Yeah. And, but like just that atmosphere is nice. I am thinking that there's this more, at least from the beginning of events coming back now, I think there's going to be kind of two versions of events, which is some of this like less highly produced, fast paced, like back everything in style of events. And then I do think that really high end event still has a place out there. And there was a lot of events in that like middle area, and I'm not sure that that's what people were looking for, because I'm not sure some events could decide on who they wanted to be. Like Retreat's very purposeful. Excel is very purposeful. It's much more built out, right? Like there is a huge main stage at the Cosmo, and like production is like crazy good. And I've been to a lot of events where you're kind of in those big rooms, and you're like we have a big room, but it's Jamie Hopkins up there talking about retirement income planning, and I'm wondering why I'm on a stage like this big, right? Like we have Phantom of the Opera up on main stage. Makes total sense. I get why the AV is here. When I'm talking about retirement income planning, less sure why I'm doing that on a stage that's produced like that. The other thing that you were talking about speakers, I definitely got into the point where when I got to conferences, I mean, it was the same, especially in our industry, it's the same 30 people that were almost at every single conference, and myself included to some degree in there. I mean, I'm not at as many as some others, but like I kind of felt the same way. I was like, I think people are done with Jamie, and I think COVID and 2020 are good, and like I don't want to do that again. So there's somebody else can have all that stage time with whatever I was doing before. I'm kind of glad to be done with it, and I don't want to go back to it. And it was interesting because right when 2020 was happening, I remember talking to Wade Fowl, and we were both talking about when we might travel and all these events we had planned. And I think for like 5 or 6 months, I was still like feeling sad that I wasn't going to any of these events. And then I got to the fall, and I was like, I don't think I want to go back to that. And so like now I actually say no to stuff where before I just said yes to everything. But I think it's really good for the industry, events, and attendees to see different presenters, that we do not have the same 30 people doing just a new variation of their same presentation over and over and over again. Even if those rated pretty well, I think it builds some staleness into the events. And like for me, I just started looking at them and I was like, oh, I've seen every single speaker here before. So I'd go to an event and not go to a session, right? I'd look at it and be like, yeah, there's probably something that's different in there, but I've seen all these speakers before. And it's something that I like about the events that pull from outside the industry too. Like my first Excel, I really love, because on the main stage, there usually isn't, there's not a ton of people that are like industry, right? Like there are other people. It's mental health and wellness and the athletes and other people that I don't see at these conferences a lot. Then you get the breakouts and you dive deeper into like income planning and tax efficiency and building a business and all the practice management parts. And then you can kind of pick what's relevant to you in those sessions.
Yeah. That's true. And I like we were talking before we hopped on the recording about just that whole aspect of it's not the same people over and over again. And like I like the pulling from outside the industry, but I also enjoy that, okay, there are a lot of sessions or a lot of events going on right now. And then so by that simple design, all the same people can be going to the same events and speaking and doing the same thing. So that variety is really important. And I'm glad we're incorporating some of that now into events these days. But yeah, another thing I appreciate about some of the events out there are they're catering to different learning styles and different personality styles. Like one event we went to here in Denver had an introvert room, and I'm notoriously introverted, so I always enjoy being able to, okay, like it was a hybrid event, so I was able to go into the introvert room if I didn't feel like being around people and watch the event on my laptop and not have to go. So I think stuff like that, like incorporating different practices that appeal to people and cater to people's different needs is really important and impactful for attendees. I don't know, do you see that too, or you think people should adapt in those situations? Like you tend to
I don't know. I haven't thought about it as much. I went to the recharging room at the FPA retreat, and I was the only one in there for like an hour and a half. So like, while the room existed, it was a very, if you're an introvert, it was a very good room. It was very tucked away. I don't even know if most people knew it existed. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. My conference experience has always been different, right? Like I haven't really attended. Honestly, I can't tell you the last conference I attended as an attendee only. I don't really go to them in that regard. So I mostly look at things from speaker standpoint, which I can comment on some event aspects from a speaker standpoint. And this is part of running an event, especially from like a main stage and breakout perspective, is you do need somebody who's willing to push speakers off the stage. And I really mean that in the most politeful way possible. But I have been to an event this year where a speaker ran like 20, 30 minutes over. And all of a sudden, it's messed up the whole day. It's messed up people getting to the dinner. It's messed up the buses. It's messed up people's phone calls, right? And to me, like I have a big problem with that from speakers. Speakers are aware of their time. And a lot of times to me, that's a selfish action, right? Like they're saying, hey, I want the time, I'm on stage, so I'm going to continue to do what I want to do. It's disrespectful to me, to the people running the conference, sponsors, everybody that's related to it. So to run a really successful event, better or worse, like you have to have somebody that's willing to step on stage and be like, hey, that was great, but for time's sake, we got to move on, right? Our next speaker's coming up. And I've seen places just kind of like let it go. And we've got some people like Scott Conroy on our team when he runs like Partner Summit, like he literally like hops up on stage and I can watch him in the audience when that thing's hitting 0. Like you could see him being like, all right, I got to get up there. And he's like ready to go. And, I think before I used to look at that and be like, oh, well, you let people do what they want to do. And having run larger events now, you can't let that happen. And I think even like attendees, like you shouldn't accept that as okay. Like if a speaker runs long, like I'm serious, like write it in the report and like the review at the end and be like, hey, like you really shouldn't have them back because it's disrespectful to my time and everybody else's time here. I also think that some speakers need to adapt more. I'd like to see more interesting presentation styles eventually. And what I mean by that is we become so heavily reliant on PowerPoint. And I say we, that's me included. But my like future goal on that is to like not like I've thought like I want to do this one presentation and Broderick's seen an attempt of it, so it's not there yet, but where I just like draw words on like a whiteboard that then pop up the screen and you tell stories about those, or you have just pictures. And some people are really good at that. Like Burt White did his presentation when he came out at Partner Summit, and like he's a storyteller and he tells stories, and it was wonderful. J.R. Martinez came on afterwards, right? Showed pictures and quotes, and like is a storyteller and wonderful. Now, there's certain presentations you want to talk about inflation. You know what? You're probably going to have charts and PowerPoints and walk people through it, and people want those resources. But a lot of stuff we rely on it too much, and it's just kind of become accepted, like as fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's the best format for every presentation. I do think it has a role. I think a lot of attendees like that takeaway for certain presentations, but for other ones, we really need to get away from that. And calls to action. I had a conference one time that was like, hey, like make sure you close with like 3 things that like they should take away. And they asked every speaker to do that. And I was like, that was really good. It made for a better experience. So there are things that conferences can do. And then attendees, when you push on conferences don't exist if attendees aren't there. So when you look at something and say like, hey, like it was a great presentation, but the end, he was just like, and that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Like, cool. Like, I don't know what to do with that. So I think some of those things I'd like to see more of. Some people have done it well, but I think just in whole, I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, I like that takeaways idea. One of the best presentations I went to at retreat was Jewel Fears, and she's the owner of Jewel Fears Consulting. So she does DEI consulting for financial services firms, and she does for FPA. She works with them too. But she gave several challenges, which were all call to actions for like, because a lot of, especially with the DEI topic, everybody says, oh, like, what do I do? What do I do? So she gave really concrete takeaways. Like, here are challenges you could do within the next 30 days for this topic, and challenges you could do within the next 30 days for this topic. And it was really impactful. Those takeaways, I'm big on that too, like in writing and in writing articles and blogs, like take over. That's why people are reading. That's why people are going to these sessions. That's why people sign up for these conferences. They want those takeaways. And if you don't spoon feed it to them, like don't make them dig for it. I think that's the biggest point. So I really, really like that point too. But
yeah, it's Ron really became like a big speaker when he used to do like I don't know what he called it back then, but it was something like the 3 secrets of my practice. And he would he was like, I just realized that I would tell everybody the 3 things that were really working for me. And, it's like, yeah, the secret sauce is out. And he's like, but then you still have to go do it. And he's like, that's been his whole thing about like abundance mentality. It's like, just because somebody else knows what it takes to be successful isn't going to diminish your success, right? Like, so give people your best stuff, and then they will come and want to work with you on those things. And I think that was a good takeaway. And I didn't learn that from Ron at the time, but I had somebody who's like notorious for stealing content. And somebody messaged me one time. I was like, man, they just used like your whole deck. And I was like, that's kind of annoying. I was like, but also, my thought on all that was like, I don't really care, because all that means is that person will only be as good as I was yesterday. Right? Like, that's always been my view on that. Like, you can only be as good as I was yesterday. Like, you'll never be as good as I'm going to be tomorrow. You'll always be as good as I was. And I think that, that like, give people your best stuff, let them go use it, is a really good thing. Like, don't hide the secrets. And if you have worksheets that you use, like, give them to audience members. I think that the more of that you can give out, like whenever we have our coaches do stuff, right, it's always like, here's 10 different things that we use, and like, go use them, right? And even though we charge for that on the coaching side to work with you on them, we give a lot of that content out to people to work through.
Yeah. And another thing that's not related to that, but for people who are new to the profession, or people who tend to lean more introverted, I really appreciate when conferences have events that don't put the onus on us to have to go up to people. Like you said earlier, you haven't been to a conference as an attendee in a long time. And this retreat was the first time I went as an attendee. And I was joking around, like, I don't even know what to do. Do you guys need help? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, just enjoy it, get a massage and do it. Because they had like little massages with the American Heart Association had, chair massages. So, but that's an interesting point. But I do appreciate that type of stuff, the networking events that are kind of a little more structured, a little more like speed dating type stuff, and just different things where you can go and meet people, but you don't feel so much pressure to like have to go up and start talking and introduce yourself. And I know that's an important skill to develop, but it's also really nice as an attendee, especially if you're new to the profession, especially if you're introverted, to have that kind of structure sometimes. So that's another thing I appreciate about events. Sometimes, which I've been going to more and more like networking events and trying to develop those types of skills and get more comfortable with that. So that's fun too, going to conferences and networking, getting to know people, which is kind of the most valuable part of it all, right? The whole networking aspects.
It is something that we've used at our events too, that I like, is that at Excel, you can actually book one-on-one time with like SMEs before the event, right? So like if you, and obviously a lot of them fill up, but like if you want to talk to Aaron Wood, who's like the head of planning, I don't know if Aaron's still doing it this year, but like in the past, you could book like 30 minutes with Aaron Wood, and like there's these blocks that we would do. And I thought that was a really cool like way to add to a conference, because a lot of times it's, oh, I really want to get time with that person, and then you're kind of like searching for them and hoping you bump into them. And I like that ability to book time with people.
That's cool.
A conference I'm going to in June, I got an email. I don't know how I feel about this yet, so I'm just talking out loud now. But they like reached out and were like, hey, one of our sponsors, right, really wants time with you, and I'm going to like facilitate that meeting and like get it booked. And I thought that was an interesting way to approach things too. I have not booked the time yet, so I guess we'll fast forward, and one day I will figure out whether I'm going to. But even that like connection point between, and I don't know that it just has to be sponsors, but that can the conference bring that facilitation part to some structure there too, which I think is nice. Like maybe you create like a block of time that allows for those, like, hey, I'm going to be there and Anna's going to be there, and we don't have to skip sessions to like network, right? And it's not just big room of networking, but it's actually like we can block time during these sections. I think that's an interesting thing for conferences to add into it. The other thing that I like that we added to Excel this last year, and I think this eventually will get pushed to conferences whether they choose to do it or not, but it's a local give back. You know, Tyrone and others, not just him, you know, with Sonia and other people too, and probably, I don't know how many, you probably know other people that have pushed on this, but like you go to a city, you bring in all these people, and there's no real local impact of the group, right? Like whether you're doing sessions for people, you're going to a local food bank, whatever it is, I think that needs to become more a part of these conferences, that there should be a local give back perspective in large conferences. I know in like a 30-person event, you're probably strapped for time and resources, but when you're talking about a couple hundred people going somewhere, it to me, like it seems almost like the abusive part of the whole system is you go to a city and you use all the stuff and you leave, right? Like
Right.
versus like show up and you know, spend a couple hours somewhere and give back. So I think that has to become more formalized with events, especially in our industry, because we can add so much value from literacy presentations, and you know, financial services typically has enough money to give back to, just, you know, even if you're just donating time, energy, money, it's not a huge effort. And I do think we need to get better at that. Even if the conference are running donation things for a local charity, I think all those things are good parts of events and the local impact. If we're going to travel to all these cities and be, you know, essentially have people work events that are local, and often don't make a lot of money, right? The people working at the events. So I think that's an important thing out there to remember.
What's the give back this year for Excel? What are we planning?
So we do have, we worked, now I wish I remembered the name of the organization off the top of my head, but we worked with them last year too. We're doing it again. And I think we raised about $27,000 for them last year from the event. I think that's good. We probably do more, but then we also have charity water. I don't know how much was raised for charity water last year at the event. I actually think we ended up raising more money for charity water, and that's more global, because Ron had that, we had a matching on the local foundation, but I think Ron was doing like 600,000 for charity water last year. So I think we, you know, and he spoke on main stage. So, you know, he did a great job. But at the end of the event, Jack Campbell and I, and a couple other people, it wasn't just them, we went to a local high school and did like a 2 hour financial literacy presentation and bought lunch for the school, stuff like that. So we are doing, I think, 5 schools this year at the end of Excel. So last year we had one. We have more volunteers this year to go do them. And then at the beginning of it, like FinServe Foundation, we went and bought stuff for the local homeless shelter there. And so Julie and Haley and who else? Jabin, me. Did you go with us? We had one other
I wasn't
person.
there yet. No.
Yeah.
I think it was Brian Money.
Brian. Yeah, Brian. So no, Brian did it because he can't sit in the middle seat in the back. I remember that. Yeah, he gets car sick, so he was like, "Oh, I'm not riding," and but he did start the journey with us. And I know some other people who did some individual stuff, but wrapping all that around felt really good. I think we're gonna do the same stuff with, but it probably a little bit more structured on both sides of that, and then the local fundraising part of it. We tried to use the app where like you move, and it tracks with Strava, but the Strava stuff wasn't working well in the hotel. So our initial plan was to, based on total movement of people moving around and like walking and doing additional movement in Vegas, we were going to do like the matching donation tied to that. We eventually just did the donation because the app wasn't working, but I think we're going to try that again. But yeah, just like location, it wasn't picking it up well in Vegas there. So that's kind of like a fun way to tie it in, right? You gamify so people are doing things. But yeah, I think those things are important. I would love to get to where there used to be people that did you'd run a literacy class for the people working the event. We did ask about that due to COVID last year. They said they weren't going to put all the staff into a room. So I think that's another one. And that's just worthwhile asking if you're running an event in our industry. Like, we have advisors there. Like, we got 1,200 people in Vegas that can all do financial literacy, right? Like, it's like you have all the resources. So ask the hotel, and if they say no, that's okay, right? But I think offering that up is a nice thing to do.
Yeah. So I want to be mindful of time because I know you have other things, but one of the things I want to know is what you're looking forward to most about Excel 2022.
From my perspective, it gets back to like the community part. So I always walk around and like interview people, like what community means to them. And you've heard me talk about this. I think there's like the two different types of communities, like the ones that we choose to be part of, and then the what I say is accidental communities. Excel is a little interesting because everybody there chose to be there. Nobody's part of Carson Coaching or Carson Group or Excel, minus maybe some sponsors, right? I guess that would be fair that like their job did send them there. But the attendees chose to be there. It wasn't BD acquiring somebody and then half the attendees used to be with another BD or firm and this now their company event. So I like that aspect of Excel is like everybody chose to be there. And so they all have like a purposeful reason that they're part of it, like learning from others and, the abundance mentality and process. And they like the fact that it is non-industry stuff and industry stuff mixed together. But they all have good reasons for being there. And I think that's always important to me, is that community aspect. Speakers I think are wonderful there. Well, we get to interview Abby Wambach on the show there, so that's probably going to be our highlight of
I think so.
of the event. So, and I'm emceeing again. I am scaling back my duties there this year. Last year I think I presented 12 times, for like mostly our partner side, and then I think 3 hours of CE and some other things. But like I'm only trying to do MC duties this year and probably not really presenting, which is totally fine. And I'm not going to do a live haircut this year. So that was that was the most stressful part. Like, it's not introducing or closing out George Bush or meeting him. Yeah. It's getting a live haircut. That's a stressful thing, right? Like you don't know the person. It's a, hotel provided a person. She did a great job, by the way, but we were like in a random seat and she wasn't super tall, and I'm not that tall, but like the seat was high, and so like I was slouched down like this the whole time because normally they lower you to the right height, and she was like, "Yeah, this is way too tall." And I was like, "Yeah, not a great start to
Yeah.
10-minute haircut in a basement, live streaming it." And then we donated that to as part of the event and raised money for that also. So that was another give back. That wasn't local. That went to Wigs for Kids in Michigan. And that donation money went there, which was also nice. So obviously tying in charity to our event is a big thing. So that's important also. And the students I'm really excited about. That was one of my favorite parts of last year too. So FinServe, we had I think 30 some last year. We're a little bit higher on people that joined FinServe this year. So I think we're up to maybe 60, and we had maybe 10 that didn't go last year. So we'll see how many go, but we'll probably have closer to 40 to 50 students out there in Vegas this year. And it's just exciting to see because like that's their first experience to an event. And I know we're going to take a couple to FPA National in December too that can't go to the fall one for FinServe. And so if you're not aware of FinServe, it's a nonprofit myself and a couple other people started, and BlackRock helped sponsor. And it's been we're really in year 2, but we have like a 2-year program of coaching and exposure and mentorship for young students, and mostly in financial planning programs, but not entirely. And we bring them out to a conference. We brought them to Excel because I control the Excel aspect and I waive their fees, but we are going to take a handful out to FPA National too that couldn't make Excel because it's just part of what they get. So those are really big things I'm excited about. I'm excited just, it's a lot of people. We were last year in October, it was like over 1,000 people in person during a year where I don't know if any advisor event was larger than that last year. I had not heard of one that was larger. Yeah, like I know Risk Alliance ran. I'll be there. I saw that announcement this last week. InvestNet's big. They're back in person. Brian Money's down there today in Charlotte. So, I think we'll be out at events. It's that's probably the number, the top things. I don't know. I said maybe like 5 things.
No, that's great. Yeah.
And we're going to do runs this year. So tell us a little bit about that. I know it's not in a total event thing, but one of the most, I think the things you're excited about is your running.
My little running program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with Excel though. But so my brother, Mike Trujillo, who's the executive director of a nonprofit called Conejos Clean Water, which is an environmental justice and outdoor nonprofit. And my husband, Jamie Limon, who's a coach and a personal trainer and a running coach. And then Lauren Jenkins, who we just had on the podcast, whose episode just aired this week when we're recording. And we started a little program called Mini Money Runners. So it's going to be a blast. It's like basically it's a financial literacy / running club. And the idea is to do it in my hometown, which is like 87% Mexican American, or Indio Hispano, as my mom likes to call us. And we're going to just have, for 5 or 6 weeks, have the kids come 3 times a week. We take them running. We have customized journals that we've printed out for them so they could take notes on their mini money lessons. It gives them some guidance on how to do some mindfulness things and gratitude. So like they have a little section in their journal that says, what am I grateful for today? What did I learn today? And who did I meet that was interesting, and what was interesting about them? So just different things to give them the tools to kind of have that mindfulness while also like forging good relationships with their peers. We're going to give them running shoes, a t-shirt, and just some fun things. And it's free to them, but we're asking the parents to put in $35 is what we're asking, with the idea it's not finalized yet, but we're gonna approach the local credit union to see if they could give like $15 per kid, so that way the kids at the end of the summer get their $35 plus 15 back. So that way they kind of see that they've made this investment in themselves and this time, and they got something back from it. So in addition to the running shoes and all the other stuff, but the idea is to make them feel a really good way about running, about financial literacy concepts and different things. So the idea is to create this good foundation and have it be a positive thing versus like a negative thing. So that should be fun. It'll definitely be wrapped up by the time Excel comes around, but we're culminating it with a big 5K on Labor Day. So that should be fun. The kids will come out. We're giving them a training program to continue to do on their own. Like, so in the journal, there are printed like the program that they're going to be doing. and then a training program so they could keep running and be ready for the 5K. So we'll know who's not running and who is at the 5K. We'll see how that goes. Cause yeah, so it'll be fun. That's great. But in terms of the events, like having Lauren on the podcast is really cool to give his perspective. I always love to see young people doing really big, bold things and having a lot of faith in themselves. That makes me really excited to see, what's going to happen with Mini Money. It's just Mini Money now, not Mini Money Management. So we'll see how that goes. And I like how he tailors the learnings to the different groups that he's doing. But in terms of the events and the podcasting, that was one of the biggest exciting things for me at Excel 2021 was doing in-person podcast interviews. Like that blew my mind because I did not go into broadcast journalism. That was not my path. And so to kind of be able to do this type of stuff in person at the events is actually something I really look forward to now. So that's going to be one of the most, and of course, Abby Wambach, that's going to be epic. A real icon, Jamie. That's a real icon. So I'm just excited to see all the people and be able to interview them on this fun show that we have here.
Yeah, you thought you didn't go into broadcast journalism.
I thought I didn't.
And the world decided otherwise for you. So not me. It was the world, the universe, not me. So that's a fun thing that we've added to this. And I think, probably over the next couple of years, us going to more events and kind of setting up with framework at them is something I really want to do, just as, our production and everything has been, just steadily increasing with the show. And so that's been really fun. I guess I'll close this out here too. So if you haven't been to Excel, go ahead, check out Excel Conference with 2 L's, right? Like excellence there. And come on out to Excel 2022 out in Vegas in September. We'd love to have you. If you haven't been, I'd say, challenge yourself, check it out. It's one of the best events out there. If you see Michael Kitcey's ratings of events, I don't know who else rates events, but he always listed as, one of the top, and I think the last couple of years, the top advisor conference out there. So I'd say check that out. If you're a coaching member, and you haven't been in the last couple of years, come out. If you haven't seen Carson coaching, check that out, and our new relationship with FPA for our, a lot of practice management materials in your FPA portal. So another good thing. And if for some reason you're looking at the price tag of Excel and saying it's a lot, I mean, it's pretty much in line, but, reach out to one of us. We're always happy to have those conversations and get you there. I think everybody benefits with more people together that want to be there. Like I said before, right? Like this is not a forced thing. Everybody chooses to be there who wants to be there. And so we'd love to see you, come spend some time with Anna and me and, another 1,000 advisors, which is a great time, and the Cosmo's a beautiful place too. It's a great place for an event, and we have you can check out all the speakers online, but pretty amazing group of people that will be out there. We got comedians, multiple former professional athletes, a lot of great advisors, and so it's kind of that advisor content for advisors, but with that sprinkling of kind of different aspects of our lives in there too. So really, really wonderful. And Anna, I guess thanks for kicking us off here today, and being such a great partner in this show. So we'll be shooting some pretty cool episodes out there in Excel. Anything else?
I think we covered it, Jamie. We really did a great job covering it.
We did a great job today. Yeah.
We are icons in this industry.
Icons and innovators, right? Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, everybody else, for listening to this week's episode of the Framework Podcast.